Hi, my YouTube friends. Annette of Annette's Needles here, and today I am in Grandma's sewing room. Usually I do a counted cross stitch floss tube video, but I'm embarking on a new project and I want to bring you along with me. This will be how to use your AccuQuilt to make a row quilt. Now, a lot of you know what a row quilt is, but just for those of you that don't, years ago, I bought this book, All in a Row. It's a Moda 24 row by row quilt designs. And it's really set up nicely. So you do one row of each design that you like. So I was watching YouTube. One of my favorite ladies to watch is Jean Truelove on Jean Truelove Quilts, and she's embarked on a row by row quilt. And I wanted to do it. But after doing that quilt on the wall, and I have a great cutter, a Martelli ergonomic cutter, my hands were so sore, and my hands have been really sore no matter what I do. So I had told myself, a couple years ago, I'm not going to make a quilt anymore if I can't do it on my AccuQuilt cutter. So this is what I'm going to do. We're going to do a row by row quilt with an AccuQuilt. Now, some of you have it, some of you don't, but I just love my cutter. And what we're going to start with is just using the value die. I will show you the value die. I don't see the paper to it right here. But this is the value die, and it generally comes, will it show up like this? It generally comes with your Go cutter. Now, I bought these years ago, and the lady I bought them from, it was a crank, AccuGo cutter, the original. They didn't used to have the path outlined for the blades, so she took a silver pencil and gave me that tip to outline your blades so you know how to lay your fabric on. And we will talk about that more later. Today, it's just an introductory in getting your fabric for this row project, row by row quilt project. Now, the dies that I will be using in this series is the value die, the 2.5 inch strip die. Is that right? Nope. The 2.5 inch strip die, which I also bought from that lady. And like I said, it didn't used to show the lines where the blades were or have these lines, but the new ones do. And so I drew them in. These black lines are drawn in by me. But if you want to splurge on another die, this is a great die to use. I will be using it, but also I will be using it for the binding. This is what I always use for my bindings now. Now, normally we're taught to cut 2¼ inches for your binding. So you fold it in half, press it, and it's the right distance to go around the edge of your quilt. Well, because this is 2.5 inches, that's what I do mine with now. I'm not real careful on my 1/4 inch. I go a fudge over, so it all fits really nice. But this makes it so much easier for cutting your binding out. Also, we're going to do an applique row, and I really want to do stars. I'm disappointed. Oh, hold on just a second. I know, right? When I store my dies, I store them in their original paper. This is the 2.5 inch, 3 2.5 inch strips for that one. This is the value die. Now, a value die is very versatile. It is, need my glasses, 4.5 by 4.5 inches, 2.5 inch for half square triangles. Now, it's 2.5 from here to here, and the point is cut off. So don't worry, when you put them together, they will equal a 2.5 inch square, which is also on here. So we'll be doing a lot of cutting on this particular die. I would like to do a row of applique, and because I'm going to focus on doing stars. I love stars. I think stars are so fun in quilting. So we're going to do a lot of different types of stars, but also some applique stars. So this is the third die I'm going to use. with our quilt. I haven't drawn it out. I kind of make it up as I go along, but we will have fun when we start cutting. You will see that. So the next thing is important, picking out your fabric. Now, as quilters, we're always told to have a light and a medium and a dark. And that generally, just for demonstration purposes, a dark would be a black, a light would be a white. And the reason a dark and a light, so that your design will show up. Then we throw in a medium. This is kind of a dark medium, but we can throw that in there and you can kind of see, as long as it shows up against your light or your dark, mediums are good to use too. Now, I have pulled out a ton of fabrics. If I was going to just use these three as my base, I would probably get a gray background with a little color in it. And I really like these birds. So they would fit in here really nicely to make a fourth. Also, I'd like a little color. So I have another yellow over here. So because there's a little yellow in the birds, I grabbed a yellow. So you can kind of see how you need to go about selecting your fabrics. Remember, a light and a dark. Figure out what your background fabric is going to be. Mine will probably be white. So when you buy your white, buy a yard or two of white, or your sheet, or whatever you're going to use, because you probably will need that. If you have 3 fabrics, the designs will work. If you have 6, they'll work the quilt will be even more interesting. So I have put out, I got a couple other grays. I got a darker gray and a medium gray. But after I laid everything out, it would make a beautiful quilt. But I love color, and it would maybe be too subdued for me. So I thought, oh, what if I threw in some daisies? They have a black background and yellow and a gray and a little bit of gray in the flowers. So I got a yellow with bees. And then I thought, okay, they go nice with the gray. So you can play with fabrics, and you can play right at the fabric store. Usually there's a spot to kind of lay things out and look at it and get an idea. If you're not sure if you have the right values, take a photo, make it be black and white or grayscale, and you can kind of see something might stand out like, oh, that's too dark for there. So you know to move that into your darker section, or maybe you think you have too many mediums, pull a medium out. So I went through my fabrics, and after you decide what your background fabric is going to be, and you buy a nice large supply of that, I kind of like this one. So then you need to find a focus fabric, something that is like, you're going to pull all the colors from this focus, if it's not going to just be a subdued, straight, dark to light like these were. So this one has pink in it, it has yellow, it has green and blue on the bird and the butterfly. So there are a lot of colors. Well, I have this in my stash, this nice green, and these kind of look nice. Now, when you're doing your values, this would fit in darker than this one. And then as I add my white in, my white would be the light, the medium, and the dark. Now I'm kind of looking, a yellow would be pretty in this, but I kind of like this pale yellow. So this pale yellow could go right here. So these are just some ideas as you're picking your fabrics. So you want your background fabric. I always buy 3 yards of what I'm going to do as my background. Then you need your dark fabric. Then you pick your focus fabric, unless you're just going to go in shades of, like my first choices were shades of grays. So your focus fabric will then determine your other fabrics. This yellow looks nice, but that's not saying that this yellow wouldn't look nice with it too and be a little perkier. I personally like the light one, but everyone's tastes run different. So Don't go by what I have or what your neighbor has or you saw online. Do something you like, because this is for you. So then I have 4 fabrics here. I always feel like the ideal for me for a quilt is 6 different fabrics, the background, and 5 or 6 different fabrics. And some of that is because maybe one of our rows will do log cabins and we'll need 3 on each side of the center. So, you know, just a thought, just a thought. The other thing you could choose, well, I found another focus fabric that I like, that I've had in my stash for a long time, and I like it so much that I haven't used it, so don't be like me. So that's a nice focus. Another focus I had was this one that I just love. I did buy this online from Missouri Star Quilts. I bought this thinking it would go nicely with it. I don't really have a solid purple, but I mean, I have this solid purple. It's very dark, but I think I would rather have like a burgundy. Wouldn't that be pretty? So there's so many choices when you're playing with quilts. Now, let me tell you, when you buy your fabric, I used to be a fabric snob. I only wanted name brand from the quilt shop. But as my finances got tighter, I go anywhere because fabric has changed. My very first quilt, I bought some from a local quilt shop, from Walmart, because I liked it. And then there was a warehouse fabric store. So I put this whole quilt together. Well, now, let me see, what year was that? In 92? That was my first big quilt. I'd done baby blankets, but so I did it right, batting, learned the quilting and whatever. It's not great. I still have it, but the only fabrics that have worn out in that are the ones I bought at Walmart. They call it blown. They've kind of blown just that one fabric in all of the pieces because of washing and drying. Now here, is it 30 years later? How many years later? Yeah, 92. Yeah, anyway, 30 years later, fabrics are much better. And Joann Fabrics keepsake line are good. They're not quilt shop fabrics. They don't have the big designers that make beauties like these. I bought these from, these are designer fabrics. But they have a lot of beautiful fabrics. You won't be spending a ton of money for your quilt. So that's what I'm recommending. Just get something. You can even go to the thrift shop. Look through the plus size skirts, buy a big old black skirt or a big old white skirt or a white blouse that's substantial fabric, as long as they're cotton. I recommend cotton. Some people, the lady years ago when my kids were all little that made everyone a quilt, she used polyester, old dresses. So you can use what you like, but it has to be compatible for washing and drying. I recommend cotton for your AccuQuilt. It cuts very well in cotton. And so you're going to need your AccuQuilt cutter. You're going to need your fabric, and you're going to need a mat. Now I'm going to show you what happens eventually to mats. This was my first mat that I used. You can see I used and used and used it on my value die. Do you know it's still, I used the front, I used the back, and it will still cut. But where I've worn lines in, that's where I have to go back with my scissors and snip a little bit because it doesn't want to cut there. Then I got another one and I cut a bunch of charm squares on it. You can see where the lines are. So now for this one, I could use this one for the stars and it would probably cut really good. But because of the grooves in it, it might not exactly cut those lines, but I could use the back. And I have another used one. I can see circles and, you know, there's all kinds of things on my mat. And I have a brand new one. It may be after I do a few, I'll switch to the brand new one. So just know you can use the front of your mat, the back of your mat, shift your mat a little bit so it's not on the exact same lines. You can kind of almost see how I did that on here. And it cut a whole bunch more. And I could clean that. The other thing, tool that you can get with your AccuQuilt is this. It's like a dentist pick. And you can pick fabric that gets stuck down in the foam with the blade. Something I use, I don't even know how I started using it. I don't think anyone even told me. It's just a wire brush that you might use clean a barbecue or something. I don't think this is any official anything. It's probably the cheapest one. I probably got it at the hardware store. Empire, it says. I think probably even at Harbor Freight, you could get something that's got wired. And I gently will brush my die so that I can get the fabric out of the lines if there's any in there. There's not a lot. It's a pretty clean cut. So I think you'll be okay even if you don't get those. So we will be doing some cutting because we have to square up or cut a little strip here and there to make our row. But my next video is going to start the first quilt, and I'm going to try and get that up tomorrow. So go pick your fabric, have fun. Don't stress over how expensive or no, how cheap it is, because we're practicing, we're playing. You want to have fun and you don't want to break the bank. So get something you can cut up. Like I said, get maybe 2 yards of your background fabric. I don't know how much we're going to use. I also keep that on the wall hanging there is a flannel backed tablecloth. Now, when I want to, if I don't finish that, put that together before we're done, I'll just hang another one up over top of it, or fold that one up and put another one up there. And then I can see, or you can lay one on the floor or lay one on your bed, and you can lay out your designs on it. Oh, I was going to show you this too. This is something I made, and you can make it. I made it a long time ago. Poster board, batting. I made another one. I don't have it right here with a flannel backed tablecloth. You cut it a little bit bigger. You tape down one side, you pull it tight around and tape this one, then pull this tight, tape this side, pull this tight, tape that side, and then do your mitered corners so they don't flop around. This I use and use and use. I did a 5-inch grid because I thought, oh, that's the size of charm squares. Then I did an 18-inch square because I like to make project bags. And that's a good starting point to figure I can go that big. And then I made a 12.5-inch square because many quilts have a 12-inch block, which you would be at 12.5-inch, so you have your seam allowances. So then I can lay on that. So you will see me practicing and playing with this as we get our half square triangles and our little squares made for our first top row of the quilt. Now I'm going to show you ways to put it together, but as you're playing with your fabrics and you're putting them together, you might find a design you like better than my top row. So we will start that together. So go find your fabric, get it all lined up, press it, make sure it's not got wrinkles in it. And we'll talk about cutting, putting it through the cutter, and then how to take them off and arrange them on our flannel block. Okay, it's been fun talking about this, and I'm excited to start, and we will get that going this week. Thank you. Bye. Hi, I just wanted to come on here for a minute. I talk a lot about AccuQuilt, and I just want to make sure you know this is not sponsored by AccuQuilt. I'm not a promoter. I don't work for them, but I love it. So I just wanted to throw this little disclaimer in.